What's going on, folks? Today, I don't know how many times you guys have heard me say this, but again, we're going to be addressing my exhaust leak. I think that I finally have it figured out. I shared this in one of the comments in my last video, but basically what I think my problem is that I don't have a middle exhaust hanger, and the entire weight of the exhaust is pulling down on the headers, and it's basically making it impossible for the header to do its job. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the driver's side header again, not fully out of the engine bay, but I'm just going to take it loose. I have tons of space on this side. Thank God I'm not having any issues on the passenger side right now, so it's mostly on the driver's side. So I'm going to take that one loose. I'm going to install another Earls gasket because the distributor that I was dealing with finally got me the correct parts. So let me go ahead and show you the Earls gasket that I'm working with right now. Alright, so this is an Earls gasket, and what you have here is a really thick aluminum flange, and in here you can see there's little rectangles. These are actually graphite inserts, and I have one right here in my hand, and these things are pretty thick as well. Actually, since I have fancy tools, I might as well use them. And just take a look and see the thickness of this gasket material right here. So looks like it's actually 2.5 millimeters. So this is what did the trick on the passenger side, and we're gonna go ahead and try it again on the driver's side. Now the reason why this one looks copper is because I used copper RTV spray. I used this stuff. I put like 10 layers on it. I think I'm going to go ahead, since I have more left and I don't really plan on using this stuff anymore, I think I'm going to go ahead and hit this thing with like 1 or 2 more coats right before I do the install, as well as my trusty copper RTV sealant. So I'm going to show you how I layered this stuff on, and I'm going to basically do what I did on the passenger side, and I'll show you guys all the steps in case you're interested, and in case anybody's having crazy exhaust leak issues like me. Now, the fact that I'm using all this RTV and everything, I don't think it's necessary, because I think that I figured out what my problem was, which is the fact that I don't have a middle exhaust hanger. However, I really just don't want to do this stuff anymore. If you watch this channel faithfully, you'll see how many times I've struggled with this thing. Like, I put half of the attempts on video, so there's another like 5 or 6 times I've tried this and I hadn't even tried it on video. But anyways, I want to show you guys what I'm doing today, and hopefully this solves my problem. I'm actually pretty optimistic this time. So let's go ahead and get to it. Alright, so to start things off, we're going to remove the dipstick tube, and I've actually got mine zip tied in here because it makes it easier to deal with. Technically, this little bracket here should be tightened in with the header stud or the header bolt, but I didn't do that because I was having so many issues with the header, so I ended up zip tying it in place. Now, this thing is really loose, and it just slides out. I'm pretty sure it shouldn't be that easy to remove. I'm pretty sure it should have some resistance, and I'm probably losing oil because of that. So that's going to have to get addressed at some point. I need to figure out how to get that sealed. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and carefully pop these spark plugs loose. And then I can take this whole bundle of wires, set it up on top of here. Now I have a straight shot at my headers. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull out these bolts, and I'll show you what's cool about these bolts. If you haven't seen my last video, I'll show you what's going on with these bolts. Okay, so I got the bolts out, and I don't know how well you can see this thing, but basically on the bottom side, you can see these washers here, and there's got 2 washers on it, and they have ridges, so they keep traction on the surfaces that they mate to. And then also between the 2 washers, okay, so between these washers, which you can't see on camera, there's also texture in between those as well. So the combination of all of that, basically once you tighten this thing down, it doesn't back itself out. It is easy to remove. I definitely over torque these things. I don't think that caused me any issues, but you don't have to put header bolts in super tight, and you're actually risking putting damage to your head, especially if you have aluminum heads. So I definitely over tighten these things, but it's not necessary to put these things in super tight. And once these go in, they don't vibrate out. And they're way easier to use than the stage 8 bolts with the little clips on them, because you just tighten these in like a regular bolt. Okay, so at this point I've got like half of the bolts out of there. I'm gonna pause. I forgot to disconnect the exhaust from underneath the car, so I'm gonna do that really quick. And while I'm paused, I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with another coat of copper. Bugs in it, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna hit this with another coat of copper just to keep everything nice and fresh, make it sticky, and get it ready to install. Like I was saying, to do the driver's side, you're gonna have to use a combination of tools. Like half of these you can get with a socket, and the other half you're gonna have to use an open-ended wrench. This stuff smells like pickles. It's really weird. All right, so now we've got the header loose. We've got this old RTV here. We're gonna start peeling this stuff off, and it's pretty easy to remove because it's on metal. It peels off pretty easily. So get ready to prep the surface, spray it down with more carb cleaner and brake cleaner, get it nice and clean, and throw the gasket in there. Okay, so I did a really crappy job getting the RTV off. It's actually not that easy to get off. Some of the chunks come off pretty easy. But the good thing is, I've been told by the folks that actually recommended this to me that you don't have to stress about getting the RTV off. So I'm not going to screw with it. And what I'm going to do is move on over here and actually run a nice fat bead of RTV across these flanges, both sides, and I'm going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. While I do that, I'm going to be cleaning off the surface over on that side and getting any oil and dirt and trash off of that. Alright, so I've got the surfaces cleaned once again. The brake parts cleaner and a rag helped get a little bit more RTV off of that, but like I said, I'm not worried about the RTV. I'm more worried about the oil and the other stuff. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and mount my gasket, and what I've come up with for that is I've made myself some mounting studs, and these are just actual screws that I had laying around that have a very similar thread pattern to the header bolts. They don't screw all the way in, but they screw in enough. So what I'm going to actually do is use these to mount the gasket. I'm going to hang the gasket on them, and I'm going to use these to line up the header, because it's very, very difficult and frustrating trying to line that header up with the RTV on it without making a huge mess. So I'll show you how I'm going to use these things in just a second. Alright, now we're ready to throw our gasket in. I definitely went overboard with the RTV on this one. They say you really only just have to spread it on there with your finger and that's good enough, but I would rather just go overboard with this in my case, because I've done this so many times. I just don't want to do it anymore. Okay, I had to pull my studs out and put them back in because it wasn't allowing the gasket to go all the way down because it was hitting these head studs, and I had to put it in at an angle. So not something you have to do if you weren't using the studs, but anyways, that's just something I had to do. So anyways, the studs are back in, and I'm gonna go ahead and mount up the header right now. And this is the part that can kind of get difficult without those studs. Alright folks, several hours have passed. Got everything bolted back up. I went ahead and made myself some exhaust hangers. I just welded up a couple of things in the middle that attached to the transmission cross member, which is what I was missing before. I'm actually also missing exhaust hangers in the rear, which I need to get taken care of as well. But hopefully what I have tonight is enough to take care of what I need. And since the RTV is still fresh, I'm just going to give it a couple more hours. I'm going to wait as late as possible. Alright folks, it's the next day. I decided to actually let the RTV sealant set overnight just because all the RTV stuff recommends 24 hours and I didn't really have to drive this car anywhere, so I figured I might as well just wait. So all that's left now to do is to fire it up and see if we hear any ticking noises. But before I do that, I want to show you guys something real quick. Over here we've got another set of my headlight intakes, and those are in production currently. So somebody's going to get to win that set right there, and details are going to come out in the next video, but I'll give you a hint. It is going to involve a burnout contest. So get your tires ready. I'll let you guys know exactly how that's going to work in the next video. Those will be done. So let's go ahead, make sure everything's tight, and we're going to give this thing a fire. hear anything. It's hard to tell. I think it's flicking, but I'm not sure. Alright, so I just got back from a quick test ride. It's like 98% fixed. I don't know why I'm still having a slight ticking. I think that it's probably due to the fact that it took me so long to get the header in place because of stupid issues, and the RTV dried before I got the header on. Honestly, not worried about it. Not too worried about it right now. The car doesn't stink on the inside anymore since I fixed it last time. That was my worst issue. So much exhaust was coming in the car. Right now, it's just it's the smallest little tick that you can hear, and it does actually kind of go away as you drive and things start to expand. So at this point, it's not perfect. What I did here, if you do it correctly, it should work for you. I'm sick of dealing with these exhaust gaskets, and I'm not going to touch it unless it starts to stink inside the car again. So I'm pretty much done messing with it. And hopefully I don't really have to mess with it again for a while, because if it stays the way that it is, then that's fine. And I'll mess with it next year when I put some turbo headers on this thing. So that's pretty much it, folks. Don't forget, stay tuned to the social media so you can learn how to win those things. And that's about it. See you guys later.